What is up guys, Greedy Knight here with an element file breakdown. Let's take a look at the potential for element builds for Chargeblade in version 2.0. Timestamps down below for each section. Let's get into it. Element file sacrifices the ability to KO using impact damage in order to pump out elemental damage. Since it relies on a monster's elemental hit zone values, you can't just use one element file Chargeblade for every matchup. You have to run one of each element type. The matchups you would take Element Phial into are the monsters with 20 or more on a majority of their hit zones. Any lower and your damage is worse than Impact Phial. Element is still niche, but worth looking into if you are farming or time attacking an elementally weak monster. Element as a mechanic scales with Sharpness. White Sharpness is mandatory to get the most out of your elemental damage. You pair Element Phial with crit builds and Savage Axe. Since multipliers apply to both your raw and elemental attacks, you are encouraged to hit the monster as much as possible using multi-hits. Do note that the element Phial explosions cannot crit. However, all of your regular attacks can crit, which is what we want to exploit. If the formula or values are incorrect, correct me down below in the comments. I've scoured the internet and this is what popped up from either Monster Hunter GU, Monster Hunter World, or data crunchers in Monster Hunter Rise. The formula for element Phial in previous games was this formula. Red Shield gives a 1.2 multiplier on any attack using the axe head, meaning it buffs shield thrust and axe chops. The sharpness multiplier for white is 1.15 for element. Note how raw attack does not influence element damage. Because elemental hit zones vary wildly, super spam is actually terrible for element Phial. It spreads out the damage all over the monster, so many of the files will output suboptimal damage because they hit resistant hit zones. Element Phial needs precision attacks to deal effective amounts of damage. Condensed Spinning Slash latches onto the first part you hit so long as the monster stays in range and you hold the button down. Since there are multiple hits in the standard spinning chop combo, you can course correct with each attack by swiveling left, right, or repositioning altogether to chop a better hit zone. An added benefit to Savage Axe is that it is easier to break parts because you are focusing on one particular spot instead of shotgunning your files all over the monster. Similarly, AEDs focus all of the explosions into one spot, making it the ideal combo finisher or monster tripper. AEDs consistently do better damage than supers for element Phial because of the pinpoint accuracy. Hitting an elemental weak spot with an AED will yield 90 plus damage on each of the 3 Phial explosions. 2 AEDs will output more damage than 1 super. You don't have to reload files as much because AEDs only consume 1 file, eliminating the need for load shells. Since AEDs end faster, it is also a safer option than popping supers. The best element files did not change moving into version 2.0. Rakna, Jira, Zenogre, Barioth, and Dragonveil are your weapons of choice. Fire and Thunder have the best matchup spreads, so at the very minimum, build those first before going for the others. There are other options, but in my testing, the others output less damage by comparison. K-Captain for Thunder and Rathian for Fire. Your biggest priority is to get Handicraft, crit up, any means to get 100% affinity, and 5 level 1 slots for your elemental decos. If you play online, you will need 1 extra slot for flinch free. Skills like Master's Touch will be your next priority, assuming you can fit in the above. I'm still working on builds, but from the armor pieces I've collected after the update, Kushala Helm and Sinister Arms are the best handicraft core at the moment, with Rajang Legs to give 2 points in crit up. Chest and waist are up to you, but there are quite a few good endgame pieces to work towards. Since we have access to a bunch of new decorations, any level 2 slots you have access to become usable for handy crit sets. It won't be viable for every matchup and is most optimal using Savage Axe. The sad reality as of this current version is that if you want to use Element Phial, the most optimal path you can take is to use a hybrid of Element and Impact. There are several matchups where Element Phial is just unusable. My suggestion is to have a backup Impact Phial set you can use for those unfavorable Element Phial matchups. If you want to go all in on exploiting elemental weaknesses with crits while still outputting optimal damage, you can use Impact Phials with Element as substitutes for suboptimal Element Phial charge blades. Like if you enjoyed the video or if you learned something about Element Phial, subscribe if you want to see more charge blade videos like this. That's all I have for this one. Greedy Knight, signing out.